Okay, so without further ado, it is a great pleasure to welcome Yi, who is a former chief pediatric scribe and is currently attending a program for the Doctor of Nursing Practice. Please correct me if I'm wrong. And he's currently on the family nurse practitioner track. Thank you so much for joining us today. We are really grateful that you're here.
Yeah, thanks for having me. Hi everyone. My name is, well, I guess Amy calls me Yi. That's my Vietnamese name, but I go by, my American name is Yui. I am currently attending Seattle University's Doctor of Nursing Practice program. Before that, I went to the University of Washington for my undergrad. I studied biochem there. And then I took a pretty long break after roughly around like 3 years or so before I actually applied for the program. And I'm currently in my, yeah, it was only 1 year. Oh my gosh, first year. It feels like a lot longer. But yeah, so I guess I'm just gonna talk about my experience and like my, what it's like to be a DNP student, what is DNP, and like how does that differ from other healthcare programs. I guess, can you go to the next slide, please? And next one as well. So just a little about me. I am originally from Seattle, Washington. I wasn't born there. I was actually born in Vietnam, but I moved here when I was 4 years old. And I have been here ever since. Outside of school, I try to have a social life, and I really enjoy rock climbing, hiking, and photography. And I would say like when in graduate school, like you're very time limited in like how much you can do. So it's like really great to have hobbies. And it's something that I'm going to talk about like later on too. I was saying earlier, I'm in the nurse practitioner program, and it's a very special program that they basically take the first year, they take a BSN degree, so a bachelor's of nursing science, and they condense it all in 1 year, roughly around 5 quarters, and they award you with the degree after 1 year, after you sit in for your NCLEX, which is like the licensing exam. And then the last 3 years is more of your training to be a provider. There's multiple tracks. I'm in the family nurse practitioner track. Next slide, please. All right, so uni and gap years. Next slide. So I was saying earlier, in undergrad, I studied biochemistry, and it's a little redundant, but also I minored in chemistry. The minor was just added on at like the very last minute. I didn't even know I qualified for a minor, and I was like, you know what, let's just slap it on there. I graduated in 2017. I was a really contributing member of BSA. It sounds like you guys have one too. During the time I was there, I was working in an Alzheimer's lab, which focused on just mapping where like plaques are from Alzheimer's, as well as chronic traumatic encephalopathy. For those that don't know, it's like, think of it as like, I don't know if anyone watches sports or anything, but like football players, when they come out, usually like that's a very big concern for people who have recurrent concussions. It's like very similar to Alzheimer's, where like plaque builds up in your brain because of all that damage that's going on. And yeah, basically my role is to just map out like subsections of the brain, like with every single every slice that is taken, and just seeing like where the proteins are and like where the damage is occurring. And I did that for around 2 years or so. I stopped after I graduated. After university, I did this program called VHC. It stands for Vietnam Health Clinic. Basically, I took it's giving an opportunity to provide primary care in very rural areas of Vietnam. And when I say rural, I mean like we're driving hours into the jungle, like extremely far from civilization. And like it was a very humbling experience, and just seeing like how I would say like how baby we are over here. Like over there, like there is a lot more severe cases, and like it's the people over there don't even have like access to Tylenol or like ibuprofen. So it was a very humbling experience, just like being able to just see like such a big dichotomy. And I soon like started scribing after I came back from Vietnam. And I did that for a really long time. Initially, I started in the emergency room down in Tacoma, which is like, I would say 40 minutes away from Seattle or so. And I realized that I hated the the schedule within the ED. Like I was working night shifts, so from 10 p.m. to 7 a.m. it was like usually like the time I was working, and after 3 a.m. is like the witching hour, you know, like you get those like really gnarly and weird cases that come in. But after that, I decided I wanted something more stable, so I went into primary care, and I was a scribe in this outpatient pediatric department for 2.5 years, 3 years or so. After the first 1.5 years, I became manager, and I was one of the managers within the clinic, and I was helping to facilitate the scribing program there. And for those that you don't know what a scribe does, you're basically following around the provider. So you're following around a doctor, and you're writing down what is going on in the room, what the patient's saying, what the any abnormal findings on the physical exam when they're doing it, and then you, whether or not like the provider is okay with it, you also are like writing down the plan of care. So it gives you that ability to think as a doctor before like you actually get the license. And I would say that was like the turning point in my career, where I was catching on to things, and I was able to like think really critically as how to like become a doctor. And I guess like it was a simple search of a Google search. And I knew like some of my friends did scribing after college too. Like I ran into a really old friend of mine when I was shadowing the ED doc in the emergency room, and like we talked more about like scribing, and like it was like his experience being a scribe. And any current tips for undergrads? I would say like don't like stress on like getting experience now. Like finish your studies and then jump into getting like that healthcare experience. Right now, like it's I would say like your biggest priority is like to just like really appreciate like what you're learning, and like develop a really strong foundation, and also like just maintaining a good, like just maintaining a healthy mental health is the big thing. And I can't say for like I'm speaking from my own experience, but a lot of like graduate schools, they also like they prefer students who like prospective students to apply later on in their life too. So like it's not like looked down upon to take a gap year or 3 like me. And it just really allows you to like grow more as a person, and really individually, and like just to really hone your skills before you actually jump into the program. Next slide, please. So these are just a couple photos of the medical mission I was on when I went to Vietnam. And on the left there in the middle is the doctor I was working with. She was an amazing doctor. She's a hospitalist, which means like she mainly works in the hospital in internal medicine, which is like medicine that start from like your early adulthood until later on. And that's like the left there is like a very small portion of my team, and then the middle photo is just me counseling a patient on their medication and like how to take their medication, what to monitor for, and you see there it's like I'm giving them like a grocery bag. It's like very informal. Like this is like to us it looks like very like very informal. You're giving like someone a grocery bag of drugs, but I mean this is an area where like most people there probably have not seen a provider, or like have not gotten like a physical exam in ever since like they were born probably. And it was just such an amazing experience. I'm not sure if your guys' school will have it, but it's something really interesting to look into. Just going on like a medical mission and just seeing like other aspects of medicine. But yeah, next slide, please. So yeah, I guess like more within my gap years, like during my I was speaking about this earlier, but during my trip, I kind of stumbled on it when I was in BSA, and it was just a promoter just talking about the program and just like telling us more about like how we could like gain opportunity as well as help others who are in a really underserved area of Vietnam. And yeah, that just got me hooked because it was kind of like me giving back to like just going back to my roots and just remembering like where I came from. And then like in scribing, I would say there's not really any requirements to be a scribe. Well, I guess like besides a high school education, I guess. But it's very minimal like requirements to get in, but the big thing is it's a huge learning curve. I mean as a manager, there were times where I had to fire scribes because like they were like newly onboard scribes because they weren't really meeting the threshold I was holding them at. And it was like a very I mean it felt horrible, but also like I try to give them as much opportunity to learn and like just sit down with them to like really educate them on how like this is expected, because at the end of the day like this is a provider's practice that you are working with, and like these notes that you're writing, it could be like if there's something wrong in there, it could lead to like a potential lawsuit. So like accuracy and just like speed and just like knowing, and like at the same time like you're typing all these like new information that you just learned about, you're also like learning, you're taking like med school and you're condensing it in like a 6-week process to like train to onboard and train. So that's why like I was saying earlier to just don't go in to scribing like at the end of your like undergraduate career. Like just take that time, finish up your degree, and then like finish with your schooling and then get that experience. Because it's just gonna be you're gonna set yourself up for failure if you do it like simultaneously. And I guess like as a chief scribe, I guess it was more of like the previous chief scribe, like finding a person who is like has that potential of like leading, and you have to make sure like as a chief scribe like the standard you're setting is like the standard for the whole team too. So like if your notes are looking good and like there are minimal corrections that like the providers are making, or like it also like it reflects on like your ability to really comprehend all that information that's being thrown at you. And I would say like it's like very similar in grad school too, where like you're kind of like drinking from a fire hose with all this information that's being thrown at you. And it's that opportunity for you to like sink or swim kind of. Yeah, next slide, please. Lessons learned from gap year, deviation from pre-med track. So yes, I originally I was pre-med, and then I realized like I did not want to spend 7 years in school. And the good part about my program is like after I graduate, I can start practicing like like as soon as possible. Or if I want to specialize, it's another couple of years, and then I can just start it's another couple of years of training, and then I can just start practicing after that, instead of like the whole pre-med route where like if you want to be a cardiologist, it's another like 5 to 7 years of additional training that you would have to do. But yeah, I guess I'll explain a little more of that later on. Next slide, please. Oh, there we go. Oh yeah, right there. Thanks. So I guess like, what is the difference between a DNP and versus like a doctor of medicine? So both of these are terminal degrees, which means like the doctorate is like the highest level of education that you can get. And the doctor of nursing practice, you can see like how much more information I know about DNPs than MD. So I was saying earlier, the first year you're awarded your BSN degree, which is it's technically an accelerated BSN program your first year. In order to obtain the DNP license or like the DNP degree, you need to have you need to have a registered nurse degree first. So that's why they condense it so much in the first year to just get it done with, and like for you to start like learning what to do as a provider. The next 2 to 4 years, you're getting into that mindset of a provider. So like you're learning, like as a nurse, I would say like that's the biggest hurdle like I had to overcome, because like I was thinking like for 2.5 years, 3 years, I was thinking as a provider, as a scribe. And like when you're thinking so much as a scribe, you and like transitioning over to like thinking as a nurse, it's like these are two separate specialties, and it was hard for me to make that transition over, because I see a patient with like that comes into the let's say like if I see a patient coming into the emergency room with a fever and abdominal pain, and immediately I already know like what like labs I wanted to order, like how would I like do the physical exam, and like what questions I would ask. But that's not really your role as a provider. So I mean as a nurse, so like it's like that big shock that you have to like adjust. But generally DNP, you're focusing on the nursing model, and a doctor of medicine, you're focusing on the medical model, which is like the diagnostic, the treating, you're analyzing with labs and stuff. And both of these take 4 years to graduate, but a DNP degree is really focused on a specific field of medicine. So for me, it's family medicine, which is primary care. There's also like adult gerontology, which is like internal medicine from ages 13 up. Acute care, which is like your emergency medicine. Midwifery, which is very equivalent to like OB, obstetrics, and gynecology. Psychiatric mental health is pretty self-explanatory. And then anesthesia, which I don't really see a lot of programs for right now, but I think it's usually like a certificate you do for additional training. And generally the residencies are a lot shorter than they are for a traditional doctor. And the amount of autonomy you have as a provider differs in terms of like how much you can do within your scope. Like I think right now there's 22 states out of the country I can practice autonomously, which means like I am able to act or provide orders, write prescriptions, and do everything a doctor would do equivalently. But yeah, so I guess it just is state dependent is like the big thing there. And with the MD degree, it's a lot more broader focus on what you're studying as a doctor. And at the end, you can practice anywhere you want. So it's you enter, I would say like you're going into the DNP program knowing like what you already want to do at the end game. Next slide, please. I'm just gonna breeze through this really quickly right here. So the clinical experiences are generally like the area where you're gonna get your most learning. That's like where you apply your knowledge and like where you get your like what you're learning in school, you're gonna see in real life. Like, you know, like that situation where you're taking physics and you're just like, when am I ever gonna need to learn like how fast this fluid is traveling? It's that question will never be asked like in higher level, like in your program, like because everything you learn is like pertinent to what you're going to be doing in the future. And yeah, so like this is the opportunity where you're like doing physical exams, you're giving medications, and you're just practicing like what you would do once you're graduating, which is, yeah, it's amazing also, but also daunting at the same time. Next slide, please. So this is a very generic schedule, my schedule. I was telling like your officers earlier that like my schedule right now is really chill. Generally, this is for like a typical clinical day. I would wake up at 5:30 in the morning. We usually are doing handoffs at like 7 a.m. So I'm just getting my day started, going into the hospital and getting in there by 6:30 and receiving report, which is basically the off-coming nurse is giving you like all the information you're going to need to take care of your patient. And it's like a very intense moment because like you're writing all this down, you're like trying to like remember and like just remember all the important information so that you're like not missing something important that like could really influence the patient. Generally around noonish is like where I would be like checking for new orders from the provider, reviewing like just any lab reports that it's coming back, and then giving them their medication. This could be like just giving them pills versus like pushing something that is like could be potentially toxic in like large doses into their IV. And depending on how like the afternoon, how acute my patients are, I generally spend the afternoon just checking in on them, taking vitals, and like doing my physical exams, and then generally just studying for the NCLEX whenever I have free time. And then at night, I try to wrap everything up by 8 p.m. so that I can have that time to just relax and just decompress for the rest of the day. Next slide, please. How does DNP school differ from the university? So I would say, and I would say like a lot of people have mixed feelings about this, but graduate school, believe it or not, I've heard it from multiple of my friends in the cohort. They say that grad school is a lot easier than undergrad, just because like there's not that added pressure of like needing to do something perfectly and like needing to in order to like achieve something higher, because you're already like at the very end, like there's no higher you can go. And yeah, so I guess like that's like the big thing that differs. What you are learning, like how effective your studying is in undergrad will really carry over to how your quality of life would be in grad school. And in terms of learning curve, it's a pretty big learning curve, but I think like the biggest thing I would say is like you have to know that like your cohort is going to be very small, and you're going to have a lot of support from your dean, your staff, and your professors as well, because everyone there wants you to succeed. And like the I think also like the government also puts money into your education, so it's like a very big investment, and like they don't want to just waste that money. So it's like there's a lot of support that is needed if anyone needs it. How to develop good study habits now. I would say for me, I hate looking at my phone. Like I rarely look at my phone. I would probably look at my phone like 4 or 5 times throughout the day. So like just when you're studying, you just need to like turn it on do not disturb mode and just leave it somewhere. It's like out of sight, out of mind situation. And I will talk more about it like later on how I created a good study habit. But yeah, next slide. Yeah, I guess the biggest thing I would say is like if I could do it again, like I would not worry about my GPA. A very good friend of mine in the program, I'm quoting her. She told me she said to me, and I quote, "I stopped like worrying about like my grades, and it's been amazing for my mental health." And I think like it's a very big thing that I still struggle to overcome right now. Just because like in undergrad, I was just like, I have to like getting into like grad school, like you need like this GPA, and like otherwise you're not competitive. And like, yeah, so like all of that is like GPA is not like everything in grad school. And just I would say like mental health wise is like the biggest priority, like, and just making sure you're taking care of yourself. So like last quarter, like I was really struggling in terms of like my mental health, because I was just not doing well in my OB class, and it was just a shock, because I was just like going like I was putting all this work, but then like I was not seeing the results. But then like at the end of it, like, did it really matter? Probably not. But yeah, so I would say like don't worry too much about GPA, and even like in undergrad, I would say like just make sure that you are taking that time to take care of yourself, because in order to take care of someone else, like you have to take care of yourself first. Yeah, next slide. So I guess like, yeah, I was speaking about this earlier, but like to create like a good study habit, like just have a planner. And like for me, it's Google Calendar is my life. Like I have everything in Google Calendar, and like if that app was like deleted or something, I would not know like what would be happening next week, or like what my next day would look like. So just like getting yourself organized will just set you up for success in grad school, as well as in your classes right now, and just like anticipating when you're gonna like have a lot of heavy content that's due, so that you can just prep for that. And just like forming a good study group. I have a group of friends that I study with maybe once a week or so. And we study for probably like 4 or 5 hours straight. And then for the rest of the week, we really don't do any studying after that. Yeah, so like maybe I would say like with the caveat, like if there's an exam coming up, like we'll probably study like another 2 or 3 times that week for another like 4 or 5 hours. But just having someone there that's like keeping you accountable, and like just making sure you're like, yeah, making sure like you're putting in that work. And I always tell like my friends, and like even like when I was a scribe or a chief scribe, like when and just training my new scribes, like like teaching others is like one of the best ways to retain content. And like for you to like if you're able to teach someone else, it really solidifies like your memory. So like my friends and I, like we would just like discuss with each other, or like try to critically think of like the concept, and like how we explain to like each other like how this like physiologically, how does this disease manifest itself, and like what are the complications of that. And then just like setting small achievable goals that you just meet. And like every day is a battle, right? Like it's consists of like very small battles. Like getting up is a battle. Getting up on time is a battle on its own. And then like after that, it's like brushing your teeth and like getting ready for the day is another battle. And like those, like when you're like meeting all those small standards, like it adds up, and like it does amazing things for your self-esteem. But yeah, I guess like those are my big tips I have. I'm sorry, like it wasn't like too deep or anything, but yeah, I would just say like just don't worry too much about your GPA, because I mean, like in my program, like the minimum GPA, like I think in undergrad, like correct me if I'm wrong, it's like 60% is like an F, right? In grad school, like my grad school, anything below 80% is an F. So it's like I mean, they want you to know your stuff, but like if you are intentionally not doing it, or not like trying to be serious about the program, is like when you would fail. But I'm just seeing so many people triggered by that. 80% is I don't think like anyone in my program has gotten 80% yet. But it's like we all help each other out too, and like don't be competitive. Like don't be that person that's like, this happened in my undergrad in biochem. Like people were intentionally giving others like the wrong answer to a problem so that they can get like that advantage. And just don't be that person. Like everyone in school is collaborative. You're gonna get there like eventually. Everyone's at their own pace, and don't bring someone down so that you can get ahead of them. And yeah, so that's like the biggest thing I want to say.
Let's do a Q&A if anybody has questions.
How did I choose my undergrad major? Um, okay, this is gonna sound so bad. Don't do what I did, but I was just like, man, what sounds like the coolest major like out there that like is gonna help me in the long term, but like it also sounds like I don't know, like it sounds like kind of intimidating almost, you know? But like I was like, yeah, you know what, like biochem, it's like pretty high up there. Like you're gonna see a lot of biochemistry when you're studying medicine. It's a lot of math, it's a lot of things that you're not gonna like. It's, I guess, like learning about like proteins and like just metabolic processes, like it, yeah, but it's like way too in-depth for like someone who is like a healthcare provider to know. So like I don't know, like I tell people like it doesn't really matter about like what your major, like there's no major that will there's no specific majors that you need to graduate with to get into med school, or even like DNP school, or even like I think pharmacy school and or dental school. Like I have a friend who's graduating from dental school this year that he graduated and he majored in geology, and it's like something that's like very like left field of like just anything that's relevant to medicine. So yeah, I would say like pick something that interests you the most, because at the end of it, like that bachelor's degree wouldn't really be relevant. I don't know that if that makes sense. But yeah. Are you planning to take any additional years for residency? I don't know. I was thinking about it. Like, I really like primary care, and I really want to stay in primary care as like a family medicine doc. But I don't know. Like, I keep on talking to my friends who are in like the emergency med track, or like surgery would be cool. But I think like it depends on how I feel after my third year, and like how burnt out I am from just school. But yeah, right now it is tentative, I would say. Do you have people originally with it? Okay. So BSN in my cohort. So my program is for students who have no BSN degree yet, or like no, it's called Advanced Practice Nursing Immersion, which is why it's like you get that like crammed in too long didn't read version of nursing school in 1 year. There is also like a side program that goes from like a registered nurse to DNP in my school, and I think like after the first year or so, like those two cohorts like combined. So all the we're just, so like all the RNs that enter, or like all the RNs to DNP students are like right here, and like we're right here right now. And then like after the first year, we just combine and we just end up at that same spot. If that makes sense. Our clinics always early in the morning. Yes, sadly. Yeah, I guess like there's okay. So like I was at Seattle Children's for my pediatric clinical, and we started at 6 in the morning. So be in there by 6 in the morning. That means like I'm waking up at like 4:35-ish to get ready, just get my day started. So you kind of have to know, like when I say like have a planner and like really anticipate, like I'm serious. Like get all the stuff that you need to get done like earlier, so then like you're not staying like all-nighters are not a thing in grad school. Like you don't want to pull all-nighters. And so I just say like just study, like just do everything ahead of time so that it makes things a lot more easier like later on, like when you're when you need to sleep at like 8 p.m. but you can't because you have to write a paper. Yeah, it's you're kind of doing like your patients a disservice too when you're doing that. When do I usually sleep? That's a very good question. I try to, well, my classes right now are from 8, well, I only have 2 classes a week, and then like I have 1 clinical on Wednesdays. So 3 days out of like the 5 weekdays, I'm doing something, and my class starts at like 8 in the morning. So I would say I generally sleep around like 10 or 11. I try to sleep at 10, but generally it's like 11 or 11:30 is like when I actually like get into bed, like go to sleep. But for clinical days, I really make it like an effort to, well, this quarter I have to be in the hospital by 7 a.m. So I really try to make an effort of like sleeping before like 10:30. How do you manage burnout and lack of motivation? That's a good question. So it has to do with like self-care is everything. Like just making sure like you take a step back and just like when you feel that like burnout coming, to just take a step back and to really go back to your hobbies and just find something that you really enjoy doing and make time for it. And for me, it's like right now it's like cooking, you know, like I really enjoy cooking, and like I really enjoy making like really like new dishes. Or like I enjoy like playing tennis and like just going outside for a walk or something. and just giving yourself like that scheduled time that is just you. So that's why like 8 p.m. like I'm just trying like no matter where I am, I just cut off and I just like stop everything at 8 p.m. so that I can actually like just have that time for myself. How did you figure out what you wanted to pursue of a MEPN? I'm not sure what an MEPN is. So the reason why I picked DNP is I already know what I wanted to do from the get-go. And I know that I just didn't want to be like 30, 35 years old by the time I start practicing. And it's like, this is like a very focused, like you only take classes that's relative to family medicine and like primary care in the program. And like, it's like, you know, like it's like a kind of like a microscope, you know, like you have like the fuzzy side and then you have like the very refined, blurry, like a sharp image. And DNP is like that, where it's very narrowed and honed into like one specific field. So that's why. It's my roommate's dog, actually. But thank you. How does your program compare to nursing school? Nursing school generally is 8 quarters or so. And my program is 5. So you're taking like almost a year of nursing, and you're just putting all that on top of like the original year. Master entry program of nursing. Oh, okay. So it's very similar, except, okay, so there's 2 ways of becoming a nurse practitioner. There is the MSN program, and there is what I'm in, the DNP program. And DNP program is basically another extra year of schooling that you would do. One for just like that, like in that extra year, you're learning more like advanced practice techniques, and as well as like leadership and what was it? It was leadership and like public health, I think, is like the other one. Like a lot of public health and like a lot of like policy making, and more of like sending you to be like the political side of medicine, and just be a healthcare leader in terms of like the administrative side. But yeah, but the MSN program, like you get the same training. It's 1 year less, and you still get to practice like as a provider. You just don't get like the doctorate title and like the extra year of administrative training. And I think there's a couple in California. Yeah. Any other questions? Someone asked, what is the starting salary of a nurse practitioner? I would say, I think the average starting salary in Washington is around $120,000 to $130,000, and like it can go up to, I think like the top 5% is like 160, 180,000 or so. Yeah. So I guess like, yeah, you'd have to balance out whether or not that's like the salary to education is worth it. How much is debt? We don't talk about debt. Well, my school is a private school, so it's a lot more in debt. And how did I give this like in relative to like everything? I have a friend that graduated from the program. I think she said her like net total debt was like around 200 to 230,000 or so. And that is caveat is like, so $230,000 sounds like a lot, but I have another friend who was who's in dental school, and he told me like dental school debt is like around $300,000. And I have a friend in med school that told me like his med school debt was around like $350,000. And he was in state too. So it's, I don't know why, but mine is a lot less than than the other schools. I think it has to do with like funding and stuff too, and like how much money you like the school gets from the government, or like their alumni. But yeah, how do you like to de-stress? I've been playing a lot of games with my roommates. We play a lot of like Ultimate Smash at night, and like we just like that's like our way of he's a software developer, so like at night, like before we go to sleep, we spend like an hour and a half just like playing Smash and like just getting our anger out. But yeah, yeah, does anyone have any lingering questions? Thanks, Zach. Oh my gosh. Oh, sorry, I missed that. My program, so it's nursing school is a well, there's multiple forms of nursing school. So you have your, so the bottom, I think of it as tiers. I don't like, lack of a better term. So you have your RN, your BSN, and then your MSN, and then your DNP. So DNP is like the very top. The RN degree is 2 years. 2 years of I guess like of associate, like you basically get an equivalent of an associate's. But I think like in Washington, they're trying to like make everything like a minimum requirement of BSN now. Or I'm not sure if it's like of just Washington, or maybe it could be the whole country. But I heard that from like a fellow nurse friend. And a BSN is your bachelor's level of nursing, and like you get to you have a lot more hands-on programs that you can do, or a hands-on technique that you can do in relation to an RN degree. And your MSN and your BSN are the provider role. So like you're doing your diagnostics, you're running, you have your own patients, you're ordering labs, you're ordering like chest x-rays, you're imaging, emergency med side, like you're doing like you're intubating, you're doing your tracheostomies, surgical side, like you're cutting, and if like the institution, depending on the institution, you can also like cut by yourself. And that's what the PA school too, like if depending on like the institution and how comfortable like everyone is gonna have like so you're gonna have like the doctor that's like in charge of like every other doctor there, and like whether or not like they're like comfortable with you doing so is also a factor too. Someone asked, do you get to put the doctor in front of your name as a DNP? It's, I don't know, there's like a lot of like controversies behind it. And it's so like, I think traditionally you think of like a doctor as just like an MD, but like at the end of the day, like I get to do everything as an MD, like a doctor of osteopathic medicine. Their initials are a DO, and they do everything as like what an MD would do too. And even like a PA, you do, I guess like a PA, you're doing everything like an MD would do, but in a smaller relative scope. But like I don't know, I try to not think about like the doctor part in there. Like I don't want to go in there for just like the title. Like it's probably dependent on like who, like if they want to, like if people want to address me as a doctor, then yes, technically like anyone who has like a doctorate or a PhD can, or an MD, DO, can be referred to as a doctor. I see it like that. How's the grad experience? Are there clubs, organizations like undergrad? There are. I'm actually working with some of my cohort members. Excuse me. I'm working with some of my cohort members to do this like sponsorship program to really make that transition for the next year's cohort a lot more smoother. And we're just like taking, we're in groups of 2 within my within like the group that we made, and we're just divvying up like the cohort. So my cohort size is around like 70, 72-ish students. The next year's cohort is around that same. And so we're just divvying it up in like terms of, we're doing like a group mentorship thing. So like 2 of us for every group of like 4 or 5 matriculated students. And we just give them like as much resources as we can, and just being like a mode of support for them. Because like it can be very overwhelming at first when you're just doing all the onboarding stuff and like just getting back into school. Like a lot of my I wouldn't say a lot actually, like there are probably like 4 or 5 classmates that have families in my program. So like having that and just like knowing and like having a family, and then just like uprooting your family and like potentially going to like another state for your education, it's quite overwhelming, you know, and on top of like everything else you have to do for school. So we're just trying to make that a little more tolerable, I would say, for the next year. And like it's generally self-made clubs, just because like it's so like our cohort's so small, and like it's like we already have like a lot of things that we have to do on top of it. So it's all self-organized, I would say. And there are collaborations and like stuff that we do with other clubs too, within the undergrad. So like there's like mentorship programs and stuff. I think like there's a like it's like I can't remember what it was. It was like first like there's like mentorship programs for like first generation college to graduate students that you can sign up for. So yeah, there's a lot of organizations that you can still be affiliated with, but whether or not you have the time for them is a whole different story. Can you go into detail what's the difference between like state-specific autonomy? Yeah, so there's like 3 degrees of autonomy that you have as a DNP. So you have like the very restricted autonomy, where like you're very limited in what you can do. You have it's like, I think of it as like a stoplight, right? So like you have your red, yellow, and green. Green is like your full autonomy. You can do everything that like a doctor can do. Restricted is more of like you can do, let's say if a patient, like you have 3 patients coming in, one like reporting of chest pain, one is like their arm was cut off, and like the other one was like an ear infection or something, or ear pain. I would say like you're able to see that chest pain patient. Like you don't see like the very severe like very acute patients, but you get to you do more of like the less critical ones. And that's it depends on the state. I think in Cali it's pretty restrictive, but in terms of like the ones that have full autonomy, all like the 2 that pop into my head is Washington has full autonomy, Oregon has full autonomy, think Montana and Idaho as well. But yeah, and then yeah, and then like all the other small states over in the east side that I can't remember. If you look up like I'm pretty sure if you Google like DNP autonomy map, it has like a good representation of it. You know anyone in your group who originally went to community college, transferred 4-year and applied to them? That's me. Yeah. I actually went to community college first, and then I did 2 years at a 4-year college. It's called Bellevue College, and then I transferred over to the University of Washington, where I finished up my bachelor's degree there. And then after that was like when I applied over. So it doesn't really, no, the schools don't, I don't think like schools really care about like your, like what schools you go to, or like, as long as like you showed like a lot of growth and like you showed them that you, I remember like talking to a doctor, it was like schools really care about like whether or not you you can act as a human or not. Like you can really empathize with patients, you show your humanity, and like you are able to, you have like that love for learning and just medicine, and it just, I think like that carries over more than like if someone from like who has all that those attributes and like had like a 3.2 GPA from UW or something, versus like someone who had a 4.0, don't really know how to like talk to patients, and very critical, who went to Harvard or something. Like it depends on like how you are as, and how you project yourself. Yeah. I mentioned earlier that nursing takes 8 years long. DNP takes 5. Yeah, it's a little confusing. So I think it depends on whether, so it depends, one, whether or not you have a nursing degree or not yet. My whole program is 4 years long. So that's 4 years on top of like whatever I did in undergrad. And that will be, and like after that, it's like I'm done. But for someone who has like a registered nurse degree yet already, and they transferred over, I think it's like around 2 to 3 years or so. So like having that degree makes it a little shorter, but yeah, I don't know if that helps out or not. And I can't say if it's the same for a MSN degree or not, but I know like, I think the only MSN degree I know in, I think UCSF and not UCSF and Oregon Health Sciences are the only two I know that have MSN. From like where you get your ABSN your first year, and then I think like the next 2 or 3 years you get your MSN. Do you know how easy it is to get employed as a nurse practitioner compared to a nurse? Well, we're in a very very short supply of nurses right now. We're in a nursing shortage. If I'm not sure if you guys know, but nurses are highly seeked out right now. And I would say, I guess it depends on the track, because I was talking to a nurse practitioner who was leading my OBGYN clinical, and she was in the midwifery track. So there's not a lot of like prospective jobs in Washington for midwifery. So she actually found a job in Michigan, where she's practicing now. But in terms of like, I would say like out of all the tracks, family nurse practitioner, FNP, is the most malleable and the most flexible and like highest job outlook one, because it's I would compare it to like the jack of all trades, master of none kind of track, where you can stop as being a nurse practitioner, family nurse practitioner, or you can specialize and do something else. And it's a lot harder to like specialize. Let's say like if you're in like the psychiatric track and you wanted to do surgery, it's a lot like that transition is a lot bigger of a transition than someone who was in the FNP and like has like a lot more knowledge in gross anatomy and like advanced pathophysiology than someone who mainly focused on like psychiatric disorders and like psychiatric practices. But yeah, I think like on average, like nurses make, as an RN, you're making around like 45 an hour or so. Yeah, so it depends on like where, like how zealous you are and like when do you want to stop your education. Yeah, any other questions?
All right, so I think that's it for the questions. Thank you so much, Duy, for all of them. I think now though we can start or actually no, we need to do the word of the day really quickly. Yeah, we're just gonna put the Google form in the chat. The word of the day is scribing. Let me bring that up on this. Okay, here it is.
All right, so I believe that concludes our meeting. Did anybody want to add anything else? It sounds not. So once again, we want to thank you so much for coming in. I'm sure many of the members learned so much. I certainly did. Yeah, I believe that concludes our meeting though.